Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to learn how to apply the tilt shift effect to your photograph. Now, tilt shift photography is a very specific type of photography that's created using a very specific lens on a digital SLR. However, the same effect can be achieved in Photoshop with just a few simple steps. Now, the tilt shift photography is known for creating a miniaturization effect, and that's what we're looking for when we apply the tilt shift photography. Now, keeping that in mind, in order for this to work best, we have to find a photograph that lends itself well to that effect. And the photographs that work best are photographs that are shot from a higher angle of view, typically something that's a little bit closer to a bird's angle of view. So looking down on a crowd or buildings or anything like that would really work best. And so basically there's a few simple steps that we have to follow, and let's make sure that we have our layers palette here. So go to Windows, bring up our layers so we can see the layers that we're actually working on. And when we have that, we're basically just going to be applying a very specific type of blurred effect to the rest of the photograph. So there's going to be one area that's in focus and the rest is going to be out of focus to help create that effect. Now the first thing we need to do is we never want to work on the original photograph. We want to make sure that everything we do, we can always go back and fix. So we're going to make a copy of this background layer by clicking and dragging it down into this little layer icon down here. And we're going to click there and it's going to become a new layer for us. And it's always really important to name our layer, so we're going to call this tilt shift. Okay, and once we have that basically set up, we are ready to go and to create our blurred effect. So there's many ways to do this, of course, in Photoshop, but one of the easiest ways is to just go ahead and click down here on the bottom left hand corner on what's called the quick mask. You're going to click the quick mask and select the reflected gradient tool here. Okay, so we have to decide which area we want to be in focus, and I kind of want this middle area to be in focus, so I'm just going to click and drag down to the bottom of the image. So you'll notice that there's this red selection area here, and now if we want to view the actual selection, we're going to go ahead and declick the quick mask and you'll see the areas that are selected. So these areas are the only areas that will be affected by the blur. And the blur tool that I like to use the best, under filter, go to blur and go to lens blur. This gives you the most natural photographic blurred effect. So depending on your Photoshop, you might have various settings already established here. So radius is the main setting that we're going to alter here, and I like to keep it somewhere around 25 or maybe a little bit lower, maybe around 20 for the radius. It seems to give me the best option. We're not going to worry too much about these other settings. There's other things that you can do here, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we just want to make sure that our radius is not too high or too low, and make sure that the distribution is set to Gaussian down here. So we're going to make sure that's clicked as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click OK. And to deselect the selection here, you could, with the keys, short commands is Command D to deselect it. And it already looks pretty good. It looks quite miniaturized, almost looks like a model. But to enhance that effect, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up our layer palette again here, and we want to really make this look like a miniature. So what we're going to do is enhance the colors, and by enhancing the colors we'll make it look like these are little toy figurines almost. So one of the ways we can do that is by creating a adjustment layer, and we'll bring up the curves adjustment layer. And by applying this adjustment layer, we're going to enhance the contrast and the intensity of colors. And we're going to click in the bottom left hand corner, bring this down a little bit, and up in the upper right hand quadrant we're going to bring that up a little bit to increase the contrast first. Okay, We're going to close that. And now we're going to add another adjustment layer to enhance the colors. We're going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer, and we'll bring the saturation up a little bit more. We don't want to go too extreme because then it'll look a little bit too washed out, but I actually kind of like that because it really makes the colors look plasticky and the whole background and the figures look very toy-like, which is kind of the effect that I like. So there you go. Now we have our miniaturized beach scene, and I think it looks pretty good. And there's the end of your Tiltshift photography tutorial. So try applying this to some of the photographs you've taken in class. Ideally, again, remember this works best with high angle view photographs. Ideally shot from a higher vantage point. It works great with people in the scene or with other objects like cars, etc. So give it a try and post your project to our classroom blog.